Hey everybody, welcome to Visually Hidden Selects. Today we're going to be talking about Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life from 1946. This movie is arguably one of the greatest movies ever made, and personally speaking, it's probably my favorite movie of all time. There's just so much richness in this story, so much to take away, so much to experience. It affects everybody that sees it. The story is based off of a short story called The Greatest Gift, which was written by Philip Van Doren Stern. That story in and of itself is sort of inspired by A Christmas Carol, which is another Christmas-themed story that has this supernatural element that heightens the story and the experience for the audience. The story takes place in a fictional town in upstate New York called Bedford Falls, which is inspired by an actual town named Seneca Falls. Frank Capra had been visiting family friends there, and he saw the quaintness of this town and decided to use it as the setting for his next film. The main character, George Bailey, played by James Stewart, his whole goal in life is to leave his hometown. That is what he is striving for, and that is what he is continuously pursuing as a character. Anybody, especially if they grew up in a small town, who wanted to move to the big city or go away to college, they can connect with this character. The film is overflowing with nostalgia. It takes place 1919 to 1945, so you really get a sense of what the world was like before World War II, and the sense of a small town community and the sense of your place within that community. I mean, George Bailey, he's the unsung hero of his hometown. So while he is striving to get out and live this life, this idea of life that he holds, in his heart, really his life is that town. And if he were to leave, it wouldn't be good for everybody. So it's one of those ripple effect ideas where one person can actually make a difference that changes the world. And that's just a really powerful idea. It's a really powerful theme, and it's a really powerful position to place a character on. I mean, of course, there are other films with heroes who literally save the world, but those circumstances are so extreme and so unlikely and so far-fetched that they don't necessarily apply to people who come from a small town and live in a community and have relationships with people. It's a very genuine story and a very genuine portrayal of a character by James Stewart. We see glimpses of him as a small child, working, being responsible, but then the story really picks up when he's 21 years old, and it follows him throughout his adult life as he develops into the man that he becomes by the end of the movie. There are a number of instances that just showcase these milestones throughout his life, taking over the family business, finding love, getting married, starting a family, and of course every great hero needs a great villain, and It's a Wonderful Life has one of the most despicable, wretched, spiteful monsters of a human being in Mr. Potter. And with that comes conflict. George Bailey is continuously challenged by Mr. Potter throughout the course of the film. Mr. Potter is basically a reimagining of Ebenezer Scrooge, only he doesn't get the benefit of being visited by three spirits. This man is, as George Bailey calls him, a scurvy little spider spinning his webs, trying to catch good people to feed on. One of the more interesting things about this film, technically speaking, is that although it's set in upstate New York and specifically around Christmas time, it was filmed entirely in Southern California in Encino. They built the entire downtown Bedford Falls set on a 4-acre plot of land, and it was filmed during a heat wave. Scenes specifically in and around Christmas time with the snowfall was quite the technological achievement. If you look at the film closely, you can see they used a combination of soap flakes, soap, ice shavings, potato flakes, and I think they even used corn flakes or like cereal to get those big fat flakes falling for the frame. The film was produced independently in 1946 by writer-director Frank Capra, and as a result, the company that he started to produce it was not successful. The film itself was not successful. It was only after years of sitting in the public domain and being broadcast on television at the holiday season that it finally found its audience, and that's what really allowed its legacy to grow and endure. The film was not successful. It was in fact a box office flop. Although it was nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, it didn't win any. Some of the criticisms of the film were that it was corny and considered to be Capricorn, but the film deals with a lot of serious themes. It deals with depression, it deals with suicide, it deals with bankruptcy. A lot of his films tend to focus on an underdog character. And George Bailey is the culmination of all of Frank Capra's underdog characters that ever came before him. And a lot of Frank Capra's films deal with this. It has these characters, these likable, relatable characters that are then cast into this unfortunate situation, and they're led down this dark tunnel that makes them question their own existence and their own place in the world. And through that journey, they find their way to the light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a happy ending as long as it's earned. I didn't see this movie until I was in my early 20s, and I honestly think that's probably the optimal time to see this movie, because that's really where the story picks up with the character of George Bailey. Seeing it as a young man, I could connect with George Bailey. I could connect with his desire to leave his town, pursue his dreams, chase his goals. And I don't think you necessarily get that strong of a connection if you see it prior to being in that position in your life. And I think that's one thing that also adds to the impact of the character. Anybody who has gone through these milestones in their lifetime, it just makes it stronger, and it makes the story more impactful for the viewer, especially when you get to the end. It's not your typical Christmas movie or holiday movie in that it doesn't deal with finding the perfect gift or reconciling relationships with family and friends. What it does is it utilizes the holiday setting to heighten the experience of the characters and really shine a spotlight on the human spirit and the sense of community and generosity and just good nature in general. And that is really the legacy of this movie, and that's really the big takeaway. You know, people who go see this movie for the first time, by the end of it, it really puts everything into perspective. I mean, the main character, throughout the whole film, he's struggling with his place in the world, and by the end of the film, he finds that place. And it's just a really spectacular journey. So that's it for It's a Wonderful Life. I hope you enjoy this recommendation and let us know what you think in the comments. Till next time, see ya.